Update 2, my wife is so overprotective over our children that it's crumbling our marriage. My wife found the post on my phone 2 days after I had posted it on the site. She saw my notification go off one night when she was up because our youngest had a slight fever. I think at first she assumed I was having an affair or something, and so she went through my phone quickly while I was asleep. My wife went through the whole post and comments that night. I woke up early in the morning the next day and couldn't find my wife in bed. I assumed she'd be with my son since he was a bit sick. I checked his room and he was alright, but my wife wasn't there. I searched around the house and then found her sitting in the living room in complete darkness. I turned the lights on and she looked like a living ghost. Her face was tear-stained and she didn't look like she was aware of where she was. I rushed to her scared if something happened. That's when I found my phone with her and my heart dropped instantly. I tried getting her to talk, but she just wasn't budging at all. After trying to get her to speak for so long, she finally just looked me in the eye and asked, "I am dangerous to them?" Her voice broke and it hurt to hear her like that. I didn't know what to tell her. They said I'll unalive them. It was like she was hyperventilating and it was terrifying to see her like that. She told me to leave her alone and continued just staring into nothing for a long time without responding to me. The kids woke up after school and went to find my wife like they usually do every morning. The moment my wife saw the kids trying to get to her, it was like she was seeing a ghost. She looked terrified and she got up from the sofa and quickly walked away to our room and shut herself inside it. The children were confused and scared, so I told them I'll drop them off at their grandparents' today and that I'd let them skip school. They were excited and quickly went off to get ready. My daughter came up to me after a while and asked me about what's happening with her mother. She's intuitive, that little one. I explained that her mother was just a little sick and needed some time to rest and get well. She told me to hug mommy when she feels like crying because that helps. I hadn't really realized my daughter has seen my wife anxiety attacks and it hurt my heart to know that I was oblivious to it. I dropped the kids off at the grandparents before heading back home. I had already booked a session with the therapist for that week after reading all the feedbacks. I got back home and my wife refused to talk to me or eat or move or literally even do anything. I was a bit scared that she might try to hurt herself. But then, she never does anything that could possibly harm herself when she's pregnant. I've noticed that. She asked me about where the kids were and I could visibly see her displeasure that she was trying to hide when I told her I dropped them off at her parents' house. But I guess the comments were still fresh in her mind and so she fought trying to fight me on that. Things were difficult for almost a week. I extended the kids' stay at the grandparents and asked her mom to help out by explaining the situation. They were super supportive and they even dropped the kids off at school every day too. I explained to my wife that I had booked a session for therapy and that I was taking her there no matter what she said. This was the only one thing she didn't fight me on that whole week. To be honest, it was so difficult to find her crying herself to sleep every night. She had random outbursts of panic attacks and I sometimes found her talking to herself when I got back from work. She started going to therapy and for the first few sessions, it didn't look like there was any difference. She just kept silent. She was on maternity leave so work wasn't an issue. I took her to her parents' house every alternative day because I could feel her suffocating without seeing the kids and I knew she was too conflicted with her emotions to ask me to take her to see them. We visited with breakfast but my wife avoided them like a plague, only seeing them from a distance. Our son tried his best to wiggle his way into her arms cause he missed her and this was the longest he's gone since he was born without her. But my wife started having panic attacks when he tried to do so, which in turn hurt him. That week was terrible. I spent extra time with our children when she was at home to ensure they know that we love them and that she loved them so much. I told them mommy needs help and that she's sick and that I'm doing everything to make sure she'll be okay. After about 2 weeks I got the kids back home. My wife had gone to more than 5 sessions by then and while it wasn't all sparkles and butterflies, she started talking to the children again, though she continued to maintain her distance. I was now the primary caretaker. She would always be there to tell me what to do because well she knows everything about them better than I do. She was talking again to me and her mother. It was a bit better. Around a week ago after one of her sessions, she came back home and told me that she needed to talk to me. I put the kids to bed and we locked ourselves in our room to speak. My wife explained how she always wanted to tell this to me but she never got around to it and that the therapy sessions with the doctor had finally made her realize that it wasn't fair of her to not explain something like this to me. I had suspicions that something happened in her first pregnancy that completely altered her attitude towards everything. And I was right. Around her 24th week, 9 years back, my wife met someone. It's crazy how one incident changed the rest of our lives. My wife was still enrolled in uni and she had quit her part-time job at a diner following the pregnancy. But my wife still frequented the diner to do her homework and assignments when she doesn't have classes since it's only walking distance. On a day like that, my wife was in the diner and had to use the washroom. She headed to the women's washroom and after getting inside, she heard noises and painful grunts from someone. It looked like a woman in agony. My wife went closer to the stall where the woman was and asked if she needed help. The woman was hesitant but after some time opened the door to take the offered help. Turns out, the woman was miscarrying. She was a middle-aged woman and was around 17 weeks pregnant. It was a huge shock to my wife then but she didn't hesitate to get down and try to help the woman. The woman was bleeding into the toilet. My wife tried helping her relax and at some point, the woman realized she was pushing the baby out and asked my wife to catch it since she wanted to bury the baby properly and not just Kobe it down the drain. My wife explained how she felt like dying when she felt the baby in her hand. She explained that he was the size of her hand. She wrapped the baby in some spare cloth and helped the woman back on her feet. Somehow, she managed to bring the woman to the hospital where the doctors took care of her. My wife stayed with the woman the whole day. The woman had lost her consciousness around halfway but once she was conscious again, my wife sat by her side to offer moral support. It's during this time, the woman told my wife about her story. She explained how her boyfriend is abusive. He had slapped her prior that day and she somehow managed to escape, but her stomach had taken a pretty big wound. She got inside the first restaurant she saw when the pain became unbearable. The woman told her how this was the second baby she's losing. Apparently around a year ago from then, she had entrusted her 7- and 4-year-old girls with her boyfriend when she went to work. But he threw a party and instead of keeping an eye on them, he was too occupied. The 4-year-old was playing outside and ran into the road when she saw a cat. A car knocked her. As a father, it boiled my blood to hear just how another man could be so careless about his child. That woman told my wife that no one would care for a child as well as their mother would. She told her to never trust anyone else with her children because no one puts enough effort to ensure the safety of her child as much as she could. My wife has never met her again after that day, but that one incident altered her brain chemistry so much that she started viewing everything and everyone as a threat to our children. It all made sense why she was so careful even just walking when she was pregnant. It feels maddening that one day changed our lives so much. My wife told me that she loved our children so much and that she's living for them, but she also explained that she's willing to understand that they are separate human beings who need to grow on their own without her. She doesn't claim to understand yet, but I know she needs time. As of now, the sessions have proved a tiny bit helpful in some of her attitude changes. I'm hopeful that she may come around better as she continues this. My ex accused me of cheating and my dad believed it. Years later my dad came crawling back. I am a feminine-looking man, to the point where it is an odd day if I am not mistaken for being a female. I lived with my dad my entire life due to my mom dying from complications of childbirth. We were each other's best friend from day one, and when I came out to him as bi as a 16-year-old, he came out to me right back as a bi man, saying it must run in the family before we both laughed. I already figured this much as he had just as many one-on-one sleepovers with men as he did women. I never minded, as long as he was happy then good for him. I was never neglected, I never wanted for anything, we had pretty much the perfect father-son relationship. I met my now ex-boyfriend Tobias in senior year of high school as he was a transfer student. We hit it off instantly and became a couple, and were so close to the point that I wanted to marry this man ASAP. We both attended the same college and got an apartment together. Life was going amazingly. A week after my 20th birthday, I walked in on him sleeping with a girl I had never met. I flipped out on him and we both cursed each other out through tears, him pulling out the cheater's classic card, "If you haven't been there for me, I just fell out of love." I kicked him and his girlfriend out. After I had spent an hour packing everything for him, I got a phone call from my dad cussing me out and calling me a horrible person for cheating. I was immediately taken aback and tried to tell my side of the story, but my dad wasn't having any of it and told me to lose his number for a while as no son of his would ever be able to cheat. I couldn't help it, I broke down and began crying and bawling, as this piece of trash lied to my dad before I even thought of telling him and tanked our relationship. I decided to move out of the apartment later on with the help of a cousin, Eric, who lived about 10 minutes away and who hadn't heard either side of the story yet. I told him the whole story and told him not to contact my dad about me as he chose my ex's side before even trying to hear me out, basically ruined all chances he had of me trusting him again. We got packed and I moved a city away, finished my bachelor's degree in computer science, and am now currently working as a software engineer. I met my current girlfriend Amanda of 8 months, after we were part of a math class project we both had and became friends. I was really hesitant to open myself back to love, but we took it slow and I told her everything about what happened before we ever got serious. I never thought I could love again and now I absolutely adore her to pieces. Now, 2 days ago I was in the kitchen, washing dishes while Amanda was mopping our living room floor. I heard a knock on the door and not expecting any packages or any visitors, went and opened the door. I saw my dad standing there, looking like total crap. His eyes were bloodshot, his face was red, and he looked like he had just finished crying. He asked if we could speak and I immediately slammed the door in his face and ran to my bedroom. Amanda heard the commotion and came to get me, asking what the matter was. I told her that my dad was at the door, and as soon as those words left my mouth, I saw a vein pop out of her head. She then proceeds to go out there and scream at him for what he put me through over the last year, telling him he has no nerve to show up here and to get his sorry butt out of here. He told her to tell me that he learned the truth from Tobias after he texted him out of guilt and confessed to everything, and then he left. I went on my Facebook Messenger account, which I haven't used in months, and there I saw that he had sent me messages detailing everything he told my girlfriend, along with his new phone number, and that he had gotten my address from Eric after prying for it for days. I haven't blocked him yet and I asked for a meeting for him to tell me, in his own words face to face, everything that happened. I told him that this was not to be considered an attempt at reconciliation and that I do not know if I could ever trust him again. He understood and we are meeting at a local park later today. I don't know what he will say. My husband has been acting very creepy towards our nanny. My husband made our nanny quit. My husband and I have been married for 4 years. The marriage was arranged, but I would say I fell in love with him about a year after we got married. About a year ago we decided to hire a nanny when I was pregnant with our second baby girl. The nanny is 18, and is amazing with our girls. She has helped me so much during the last few months of my pregnancy and especially postpartum. I didn't have anyone to confide in as none of my friends have ever been pregnant and my mom is dead, and I hate my mother-in-law. Our nanny has so much experience and was so amazing to me. She made me amazing soups and stews from her culture that were made to help pregnant women. Our nanny and my husband only met once, and that was during our Zoom meeting, and they have never met after that. Since she gets here after my husband leaves and leaves before he comes back, they've never crossed paths before. 3 weeks ago my husband and I got really sick, and so my husband stayed home from work. Due to how sick I was, I forgot to relay this information to our nanny. Our baby has been extremely clingy the past few months and will cry if left alone. I usually bring her in the bathroom with me, but the bathroom downstairs is much smaller, so our nanny can't do that as comfortably. She decided to just start using the bathroom with the door cracked open and would give our baby a toy outside so she's not tempted to come in but can still see her. I'm aware of this and am fine with it since it's only us girls home. While my husband was home unbeknownst to her, she went to use the bathroom with the door open and my husband saw her. She completely freaked out and apologized profusely. She was wearing a romper so she was almost completely unclothed when he saw her. I had no issue and apologized to her that I forgot to let her know my husband was home. Everything was fine but I sensed she was extremely uncomfortable, which I kept apologizing for. The next few days my husband started going to work late and coming home early, to which there would be more interactions between him and the nanny. When I hired our nanny, one of the things she told me was that she wasn't comfortable with adult men in the house, which was not a problem since our arrangement didn't allow it. When he would see her, he kept trying to make personal conversations which our nanny redirected to the girls. Last week, she spoke with me and reminded me of the agreement we had, which was no adult men in the house, and that she was uncomfortable. I completely understood where she was coming from. I spoke with my husband and he apologized to her and me. The next day he went to work normally, then 2 days later he told me he had to work from home since his office is getting worked on. We talked to our nanny and my husband told us that he would stay upstairs the whole time, which worked for the rest of last week. Monday he accidentally forgot his coffee and went to get it while our nanny was there. He was asking her personal questions. He asked her how was her weekend, to which she responded good, and then he had the nerve to ask her if she saw her boyfriend. She responded no and that she didn't have one. He went on to ask her what type of men she was into, so I went downstairs quickly to stop it and apologize to our nanny. When we got upstairs I yelled at him for talking to her like that and reminded him what he agreed to do, and that was to stay away from her. I noticed he was monitoring the nanny cam a lot and he told me he was just checking in on the girls. Yesterday I had a really bad stomachache because I'm lactose intolerant and my husband accidentally put whole milk in both of our coffees. I asked him to go in the day with the nanny and lock up the door after her. Unbeknownst to me, he started asking her what type of men she was into again, and was telling her how he would be open to dating black women before and is into them. Our nanny is black. And equally problematic. I'm not. He also jokingly grabbed her shoulders to pick her up and move her aside to get to the fridge. Why he didn't say excuse me is beyond me right now. Last night our nanny tried calling me but I was sleeping because I took some medicine for my stomach. I woke today to see a text from her that she was quitting because she didn't feel comfortable coming to the house anymore. I texted and called her and she hasn't picked up. I'm beyond angry at my husband and took some time to calm down, but really I can't. I don't think I can replace her and truly I don't want to. I don't want to start this all over again. I need to talk to my husband.